Hello to everyone again. I am recording this video with instructions and a general explanation of the assignment that you have to do this week. I'll just go over general points. Still, you have to read carefully each of the sections in the instructions, and I'm providing here steps to follow. So what is this assignment about? This is going to be based on chapters 6 and 7. If you remember in chapter 7, one of the type of research projects is for the so-called stage 1 developmental research approaches. And basically what you will do is for the business that you have been using for the assignments so far, you will select the city or the town or the location where that business is operating and assume that you will select and identify target market that you will go after, right? So that requires you to do segmentation of the potential customers or existing customers. But as you are learning in chapter 6, you have to divide or identify groups of people, group of customers that make sense for the products and services that you offer, right? So in step 1 here on the instructions, you have a link to the website of the databases available through the university's library. And out of those different databases, you will use Simply Analytics, which is a market research tool that is very convenient and is updated with current data from the census, from proprietary market research that different companies do. And I will show you in a second how to access that. What you will do when you access that database platform, you will identify at least 2 groups of the population of the city or town or geographical area that you select. And these 2 groups, at least 2, can be 3 or 4, but I really encourage you to stick with 2 to keep it not too complicated. At least 2 socio-demographic variables that you will pick to segment the market, right? For example, age, education, income, etc. Those are in chapter 6. But you can also look at other different segmentation bases that are not socio-demographic, right? And Simply Analytics offers different groups of data that fall, for instance, in the characteristics of the use of technology by consumers, or the composition of the households, or financial habits, or lifestyles, etc., etc. So you will see that when you explore the platform. But what I want to emphasize here is that the requirement is for you to use at least 2 sociodemographic variables, but you can use other non-socio-demographic variables if you wish to do so, right? So let me click here in the link for the databases so that you can see where this is going to take you. So you should be able now to see the database page of the library. This is in the letter S. So under letter S, you scroll down, and here you will be taken to Simply Analytics, right? You see it right there, just to make sure you are in the right screen. Yeah. So you click there. And when you get into the welcome page here, you should sign in as a guest. So go to the lower part here, click sign in as a guest instead of accessing with your credentials, which I believe would be more complicated. Just sign in as a guest. If you have never used Simply Analytics before, I advise you to go through this quick tour provided for users. If you have used it maybe for other courses, well, maybe you are more familiar, but I still advise you to explore, browse around, experiment, so you can learn it better. So I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna close here. And when you will go here where you see the first screen, go to comparison table in the middle, because basically you want to access data which is displayed in tables or charts, maybe maps, but let's stick with comparison table. So you see here that you have the USA as a default choice. Now go to the left-hand side, here on the upper left-hand side where it says location, and you enter the place, the city, the town where your business that you're using as a case study for the assignments, that business that you're using for case study, wherever is the main location, probably it's only one location where they operate, that's where you will use. In my example here that I'm showing you, I will use Corpus Christi, Texas. And then on the right-hand side, I go to the button that says data, right next to location, on the right-hand side of location. And here you have different categories of data that you can browse and look around and choose to display for that location. Again, you will see in the middle the location that you selected. In my example here is Corpus Christi. So you have socio-demographic categories here. And I said, well, you are encouraged to explore other type of um, variables that are not necessarily socio-demographics, right? Maybe you want to look at consumer behavior patterns, technology use, financial characteristics, housing, household. You have different um, categories to look at. I'm going to choose age as an example, assuming that for the business that I'm using, age is a variable that makes sense to group my customer, to make a segment, to do a segmentation based on age ranges, right? So let's assume that this is something that for the products and services offered by this business, it makes sense to group consumers and segmenting them according to age ranges. So I will go to the different options here. For instance, let's say that I want to pick age ranges from 20 to 24 years old and from 25 to 34 years old. So you see here I selected these ones in numbers, the absolute numbers of people in Corpus Christi within those age ranges, and also percentages. So you have absolute number or the amounts of people and the percentage. So once that those are checked, on the extreme right-hand side, you have here the button comparison table. So I'm going to click there, and you see that over there you have the table with the rows showing the number and percentage ranges, the number of people In the USA, that's the middle column. That's given by default. But what is more important is the right-hand side column, in this case, Corpus Christi, or whichever location that you selected where the business you're using as a case study operates, right? So that's where you're interested to know how many of those people who you consider are the potential or existing target markets for your products or services should be the focus of your marketing segmentation. Very important. If this is what you will use as one of the two segmentation bases, then you need to get a screenshot of this table because you will use it later and include it in your report assignment, right? Now, another way to look at this data is if you go to the right-hand side here, you see where it says map. And here will give you the nation map, but here on the upper part, you see where it says USA, you click and choose Corpus Christi in this case, which is where I want to focus my research. And here you will see a map of Corpus Christi with different zip codes in different colors, indicating, as you see here on the right-hand side, the concentration of people, for instance, in the age range from 20 to 24. Here up in the middle, you can change maybe for the 25 to 34 years old group, and that may be a slightly different. So if you're going to present this also with your assignment report, make sure to take a screenshot and save this image because it'll be needed later. If you log out of Simply Analytics without saving these screenshots, you will have to do everything again because these are not stored or saved by default because you sign in, remember, as a guest. Now, this is for one segmentation category or variable, which is age. Remember, I asked you to look at least two bases. So maybe another base that I will use or segmentation variable will be education or ethnicity or maybe some consumer behavior or technology use dimension. So it's up to you. I'm not gonna go over that, but just wanted to make sure that you know how to explore Simply Analytics platform. So now let's go back to the instructions. In the instructions, I'll go then to the next page because the first page was basically describing what I just showed you. So you will complete in the actual report, which is what you will submit into Canvas, part A, B, C, and D. The other steps before, they were for you to follow in indications, but what you will report is part A. So you will provide a description of the two groups that you examine in Simply Analytics, right? And you will identify using black bold font the segmentation variables that you chose. For example, if you use socio-demographic or geographic variables, you will say, okay, these were socio-demographic variables, age and education, for instance. Or maybe you use one demographic variable and another is usage pattern, for instance, of technology, or maybe a lifestyle. So whichever combination you use, maybe two socio-demographic, maybe one socio-demographic and another of different category, make sure that you indicate which ones they are. And importantly, explain and justify why you think that those two segmentation bases reflect the characteristics that would correspond to the potential target market. Why you are choosing those? Well, conceptually, they have to make sense theoretically. And that's something that you learn in this chapter 6 that we are covering. Next, you will briefly discuss in section B the desired positioning for the business. And again, this is something that is in chapter 6. And what you will do actually is go to one of the models that is included in chapter 6. I'm showing it here right now. And this is in the textbook, and this is in the slides for the chapter. This positioning opportunity model includes 4 factors, and you will read about this in the textbook. And for your assignment, select one of these that you believe is more suitable for the segmentation and the targeting and the positioning for the business, depending what your business industry is, the market, competitors, etc. So what will be the positioning in terms of either relevance or differentiation between competition? You want to differentiate um, your business or brand, maybe developing credibility, or maybe stretching that positioning into a wider scope that taps onto more consumers. So you will discuss this. You will justify why you are choosing those those positioning factors, either relevance, differentiation, credibility, or stretch, and indicate in black bold font. Section C, that'll be the appendix. And what is what you will put in the appendix? Well, there you will put the screenshots or the images that you got when you were obtaining the data from Simply Analytics, right? So you will show there the table, the charts or figures, which must be numbered and labeled. So you will say table number 1 is the distribution of population in whatever place that you're using for your business, and based on education, based on use of technology, based on transportation modes, how many vehicles they have at home, etc. Whatever it is that you use from Simply Analytics. And last but not least, the references. List of references in APA format style. And this should be, of course, including the textbook, which is where you are basing the concepts that we just discussed. You will use maybe other sources if you want, outside reports or sources that you think are relevant. Well, just put them there. And they must be cited in the report, including, of course, the database that you are using, which is the secondary source that you need to base your report on, which is Simply Analytics. Well, you got to put that in the references. If you have any question, make sure to send me an email. All right, thank you.